Have you ever stopped to think about what the Bible really says about the Antichrist? This mysterious figure, at the center of many discussions, generates various interpretations. For some, he will be a literal being, a man with unimaginable power. For others, the Antichrist may be something much broader, a global system that, over time, seeks to control the destiny of humanity. Throughout history, many attempts have been made to identify the Antichrist. Some people believe he has already appeared, while others say he is yet to come. But what would the Antichrist really be? Will he be a literal figure with a physical body, or will he be a much broader system, spiritual, ideological, and even political, spreading throughout the world? Today, we will explore this question and analyze the different perspectives on the Antichrist prophecy. Before we start, I want to hear from you. Do you think the Antichrist will be a real person or a global system? Leave your opinion in the comments, and let's discuss this. And before you continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive notifications of videos on topics like this. Now, let's discover together what the Bible has to say about the Antichrist. To begin, we need to understand where the scriptures talk about the Antichrist. The term Antichrist appears primarily in John's letters in the New Testament. He is described not as a single figure, but as a spirit that denies the divinity of Christ. In 1 John 2, verse 18, we see John warning, "Children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come." This statement suggests that the Antichrist is not limited to one person, but to an idea or spirit that manifests in many forms. The concept of Antichrist is, therefore, more complex than just a single human figure. It is related to any being, movement, or ideology that opposes the true nature of Christ. This leads us to a reflection. Is the Antichrist a specific person, or is it a manifestation of a system that denies the truth of Christ? However, the word Antichrist is not the only reference in Scripture. In Revelation, for example, we find a figure called a beast, which is also associated with the Antichrist. In Revelation 13, the beast is described as a being that receives power from Satan, with 7 heads and 10 horns, and is worshipped by all the nations of the earth. While many consider the beast as a literal leader of a global government, it's worth reflecting on what these symbols really represent. Is the beast a person, or is it a system? In Daniel, chapter 7, we find another reference to a beast rising from the sea, with characteristics similar to the description in Revelation. It symbolizes an evil empire that God's people will have to face. Here, we see that the beast is not just one person, but an empire, a system of domination. This leads us to an important question. Can the Antichrist, as presented in the Bible, be understood as a symbolic figure, a representation of a system of power and control, rather than a literal person? Now, let's look at the traditional view, which understands the Antichrist as a literal figure. This perspective is quite popular, especially among Christians who believe that the Antichrist will be a real person, a charismatic leader who will arise at the end of times to rule the world. In this case, the figure of the Antichrist is seen as a man with extraordinary abilities who can deceive the masses and gain absolute power. In Revelation 13, the beast is described with characteristics of power and authority, being worshipped by the nations and receiving power from Satan. This being is described with a terrifying appearance, with 7 heads and 10 horns. The fact that it is called the beast and worshipped by all nations suggests a being with enormous, destructive influence. If we take this view literally, the Antichrist would be someone capable of uniting all world leaders under a single global government. He would have a supernatural ability to deceive people and exercise total control over their lives. Many scholars believe that the Antichrist will be a world ruler who will come after a period of great tribulation, seizing the chaos and instability to establish a new empire. However, an important aspect to observe here is the fact that the Bible gives us a series of symbols to describe the Antichrist, like the number 666, which appears in Revelation 13, verse 18. This number is seen as a symbol of imperfection because, while the number 7 symbolizes perfection and divine completeness, the number 6 represents man and his flaws. The Antichrist, then, is someone who opposes God and his perfection. Although many think that the Antichrist will be a person with a specific name and identity, the truth is that the biblical descriptions can be understood more symbolically, reflecting the nature of an empire or system, rather than an individual person. Now, let's explore a more modern interpretation of the Antichrist, the idea that the Antichrist will not be a person, but rather a global system. This view is gaining strength among many contemporary scholars and thinkers who believe that the scriptures warn us about the creation of a totalitarian system of control, one that opposes freedom and the truth of Christ. In Revelation 13, besides a beast, we find a description of a false prophet who deceives the nations and helps establish the beast's rule. This false prophet can be seen as an ideological force, something beyond a person, representing a system of control that manipulates the masses. And this system is not limited to one leader, but involves a complex network of politics, economics, and cultures that come together to form a new world order. The idea of an Antichrist system is especially relevant today, as we are witnessing the rise of power among large corporations, governments, and technologies that seem to be creating a global system of control. The advancement of surveillance technologies, the centralization of political and economic power, and the growing push for global governance are clear signs that a global control system may be forming. If we think of the mark of the beast, described in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17, as something more than just a number, we can see it as a reference to an identification and control system. The mark could represent a digital system, such as biometrics or artificial intelligence, which will be used to monitor and control people's transactions and behaviors, requiring total adherence to the power system. This global system would, therefore, be a representation of the Antichrist, a spiritual and political movement that opposes God's principles, seeking to subjugate humanity under a tyrannical control. If we look at the world today, we can see many signs that the Antichrist system is already in the process of formation. The increasing centralization of power, both in the political and economic spheres, is one of the main indications that a global system of control is underway. Large international organizations are increasingly influencing the internal policies of countries, promoting a global agenda that favors centralized control. Moreover, technology is playing a crucial role in this process. The rise of surveillance technologies and the digitization of the economy are creating a society where people's privacy is increasingly at risk. Governments and corporations have access to personal data, consumption habits, and even health information. The concept of total control is also visible in various areas, such as education, where there are attempts to shape the mindset of new generations, or in the media, which constantly manipulates public perception. These signs show that, although we can't point to a specific figure as the Antichrist, we are clearly witnessing the emergence of a system that seeks to control the masses, turning them away from truth and freedom. The Antichrist is one of the greatest mysteries of Scripture. Will he be a person? Will he be a system? The answer may be both. What we do know for sure is that the Scriptures warn us of the coming of a figure or movement that will try to deceive people, leading them to a system of control that opposes God. And what do you think about this? Will the Antichrist be a real person or a global system of control? Leave your opinion in the comments, as your participation is important. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss our next videos. Thank you for watching and see you next time.